Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Soulful Conversations, a space where we explore healing, growth, and mental wellness together. I'm Preeti, and I'm joined by a fellow holistic coach, Mel. Hi, Mel. How are you?
Hello, so well, thank you. It's so great to start the week like this.
Yeah.
How's your week been?
Oh, it's been good. Exciting,
Yay.
exciting conversations are happening with fellow coaches. So, yeah,
Yay, all the
we're,
good things.
yeah, we're so glad you're here. Have you ever found yourself feeling emotionally exhausted? Not just tired, but drained, deep in your spirit. Maybe you're someone who gives and gives, holding space for others, caring, listening, and showing up with an open heart. But at the same point, you wonder, who's holding space for me? Today we want to talk about something we don't often name, and that is compassion fatigue. It's the emotional residue or strain that comes from exposure to others' suffering, especially when you're constantly trying to help. Unlike burnout, which is built from overwork, compassion fatigue stems from the heart. It's when empathy becomes depleted, when our wellspring of care starts to run dry. When we talk about emotional exhaustion, we often hear the word burnout. And yes, burnout is very real. But for those of us in, the caregiving roles, whether as therapists, coaches, nurses, parents, or even just those with naturally open hearts, there's something deeper that often gets missed, and that is compassion fatigue. What about burnout exactly? Burnout typically stems from the external pressures of work and life. It builds slowly over time due to chronic stress, long hours, unrealistic expectations, and lack of rest or support. Burnout is usually a result of overdoing, overcommitting, and not having systems in place to regulate your energy or balance. Compassion fatigue, on the other hand, is emotional residue or stress that results from deep empathy, and that's what we as caregivers face, right, Mel? I'm sure you have
Yeah.
probably noticed it sometimes in, the coaching world. Um, I guess it's,
Yeah, absolutely. Because I guess we're putting others first or others' needs first over our own. So it's been very mindful. Hang on a minute, where's that energy going and how do we recoup that? So I absolutely hear you in that one.
yeah. Um, it's often the cost of caring, right? Like burnout, which builds from workload, compassion fatigue builds from heart load. And here's what it could feel like: sense of numbness or emotional flatness, feeling like you have nothing left to give. It's almost the feeling of the empty cup that we, talk about a lot. Avoiding interactions or becoming irritable, disconnection from your own emotions, or even over identifying with others' pain to the point where you carry it as your own. So, burnout is literally equal to too much to do, and compassion fatigue is too much to feel. Well, do you want to take the identity loss layer?
Yeah, so I love that you just differentiated between the two of, it's the feeling and the caring, and that's the part that's getting us down at times. It's not the too much workload because even though they kind of look similar, they are separate or they are different. And so it's really important. I love that, you've just shared that it's, a clear line of, which one is it for you and which one are you experiencing. So um, I think that's really a really important point that you have just made. And then that kind of ties into, like, I guess, when we are caring for someone else, or, when we're putting other people first, or we step into that role, what we can actually do is lose our identity. And so this is a really important part because over time, it's something that you might not notice straight away, right? You're just you're stepping into a different role. So it's that transition stage. So whether you are becoming a new parent, whether you start a new job, whether you become a business owner or you become a caretaker, you can start to lose yourself in that identity. And it happens slowly over time. And so all of a sudden, next minute, you're the parent, you're the mum, you're working and you are the person giving that care. And you can actually start to forget, actually, who am I? Like, who was I before I started the job, before I became a parent? Before I was giving all my time to someone else. So it's that real identity loss layer that comes up when we step into roles like that. Or it could just be, I mean, it could just be someone who's just a full-time feeler. If you have a big heart and you take on that, you want to be there for other people and you take on that, it can also affect you in that way. And next minute you can be finding yourself drained of this energy because you're giving so much of your own to someone else. So it doesn't have to be so much that you've started something new, although that's where the identity loss usually comes in. It could just be that, you have a big heart and, you're giving so much to other people that you're losing who are you at your core or what's important for you. And so I think during that time, it's really that balance becomes unbalanced. So it's that so much is going out versus the little that's coming in. And it's just something to be really mindful, like we've spoken before about our, where the energy is going. And so what I would suggest to someone in that is just to actually stop for a minute and ask, what used to light me up, right? So what were the things that I find fun? Who was I before the person I am now? And I think in that, that's the little breadcrumbs that we lay. And I think when you ask that question of what used to light me up and you get the answer, my tasking would be to go and do that.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday with a client, I said to her, what used to light you up? What did you like doing as a kid? And she was like, well, playgrounds. And I was like, cool, let's go. And we actually went to a playground. And yes, we played on the swing and we went down the
Wow.
slide. And you could just see it in her face. There was just this lightness. And she's like, I just feel like there's not a worry in the world. And I was like, yes, it's doing those things that light you up to bring you into that space to fill your cup.
Hmm.
And so, whatever that is for you, do more of that, whether it's every day would be great, but a couple of times in the week, do what really lights you up and it just brings you back. And I think also in those transition times, there can be a loss of identity too. So just being really gentle on yourself and being really compassionate with yourself that this is a transition. It's not forever. And it's just those little things that we can do to fill our cup to keep us going. And a little while ago, we did do a post. We did do a video on micro healing. So if you haven't seen that, or you want some little tips and tricks to help you fill your cup, then go back to that micro healing episode, and you might find some gold in there. So really just what do you think, finding your own way of filling your cup up?
Um, there are so many ways. And firstly, thank you for, this beautiful explanation. The information was bang on. I definitely, what stood out to me was the fact that you giving the practical tip of, that people, or like rather we can always ask the question to ourselves that in a way, who am I if I am not the one who's helping, right? Like other
Yeah.
than that identity, what am I really? And that question is so powerful when clients would, start asking this question, or well, rather when people would start asking this question, I think that will bring them to an answer that is really them. I'm also wondering, people probably also start feeling like if I am just valuable when I am giving. and not the other times, which again I think would lead to the cycle, where they'll start feeling the fatigue and even probably some feelings of worthlessness, or I don't know, they calculating value based on how much they're giving, right?
Yeah, and then you get caught in that cycle, don't you? Of that, like you're kind of creating it, but it's yeah, and that cycle just keeps going, and it's like, when does it stop, right?
Yeah, I know. Beautiful. Um, okay, let's talk about support for the givers.
Mm.
If you're a nurse, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a therapist, if you're in healthcare, leadership, or just a human with a big, beautiful heart, this message is for you. Support for the givers is not just a nicety, it's a necessity. Those who dedicate themselves to nurturing others, whether through their professions or their very nature, often do so silently with immense emotional labor that remains unseen. Nurses, therapists, coaches, or just generally healthcare workers, educators, parents, or sensitive souls like me who simply care deeply. These individuals form the emotional scaffolding of families, communities, and institutions. Yet, despite holding so much for others, they rarely have a space where they can set it all down. Support for the givers means recognizing that their emotional capacity is not limitless. It means that we are human. It means creating containers where they too can be vulnerable, where they are not required to be strong, the strong one, the wise one, the healer all the time. So often their identities become wrapped around being dependable, empathetic, or resilient, but these traits should not come at the cost of their own well being. And I don't believe that any one person can, keep being the same all the time. True support looks like being seen without expectations, being offered rest without guilt, and being able to receive without needing to explain. It's about shifting the culture around care itself. So that reciprocity, not martyrdom, becomes the standard. It's about teaching those who give us so freely that their humanity matters as much as their service. And the one name that I immediately get is mothers. Our mothers are trying everything possible to for the family, for the kids, for the husband, for the partners. They don't they think they don't require self-care, and it's about reminding them that even the most giving hearts deserve to be poured into, not just drawn from. Over to you, Mel.
Yeah, I think, it's so hard when you say, like, oh, the parents. I think, the parents, that's probably the toughest transition that they probably feel it the most because you have no choice. That child does come first,
Yeah,
and so yeah, it's a really tough I think that's probably when you think about it, that's like, the poster child of when we're talking about feeling lost in identity or giving too much, like parent is exactly what comes to mind.
yeah,
And it's just having that, I guess, that person in your corner as well to shine that light, which is super helpful to be like, actually, you've got to put your own safety jacket on first before you can put it on someone else. But I think, shout out to all the parents out there. You guys do an absolutely amazing job. It's a job that is so important and so fulfilling, and it can be also draining at the same time. So, like, totally, like, we take your hats off to you. And, if you're a parent out there, be easy on yourself. Know that you are doing great. And yeah, lots of respect to you as
definitely.
well.
Big shout out.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I think when we kind of talk about when we get to that state where, you know, are we putting others first and are we draining that energy for us? And what does that mean exactly for us? And so we can get into this really hard trap of how it's actually affecting us in our body. And so this is a huge one, is how are we being affected, right? And so when we talk about compassion fatigue, a lot of the time it is that we're storing emotions, whether that's our own emotions or whether that's someone else's emotions. There's a lot of emotion work in that. And so what we know is that stored emotions equals stuck energy. And we know that energy that is stuck and not able to release causes disease in the body. And so that's something to be really, really mindful of, is that emotions and stuck emotions actually do cause some level of disease, whether it's in our physical body, our energetic body. So it's one of those things where we really need to come online and be very aware of those little messages that we are getting. Because as we know, like the body whispers, right? It gives us these little niggles, whether it's feeling tired, feeling anxious, or feeling irritable is a really good indication that something's off. And it'll start with these whispers, and then it might get louder. It might turn into, chronic anxiety. It might turn into a headache that you can't get rid of. And then it starts screaming. And that can come out in all sorts of different ways. And that's the point where your body's going, okay, it's so like it's been through so much. I've been telling you for so long. And like at some point, you have to listen. And at some point, it stops because that's the only way it can get you to listen. And if I don't know if I've explained that too well, but a movie I watched a little while ago, which is wild and great for explaining this, it's called Brain on Fire. It's on Netflix. So
Okay.
if it's something that you want to understand that a bit more, or it's just a great film to watch anyway, but it explains exactly what I'm saying, just in a more powerful way of like the body will whisper and then it'll scream and then it'll stop. So really just being mindful of, putting that energy out there and taking on those emotions of what is that actually doing to ourselves and what is that causing ourselves, and just being mindful of that is a really important part. Um, Common signs that we are being affected by the energy that we are taking on are things like being sick all the time, having a really low immunity, gut issues is a huge one. Again, like I said, migraines, or just feeling kind of that you're getting disconnected from the things that you used to find fun. Like if you're going through life and you're like, there's no time for fun because there's always the checklist and there's things to do, that's a really good indication that, hang on a minute, that that balance is off. And getting back to, those things that you once found fun, or if you're finding there's like a numbness there, or there's a careless there of, you just can't take on anymore, or there's just you feel like you're always giving out, that's a really good indication that there is something off balance there, and you might look at, what do I need to do to bring my energy back up and to look after myself. Um, and it's a little bit. I mean, we're looking through the lens of the quantum lens, right? Which is every energy, every emotion is energy, and it really is, and it's either moving or it's storing in our bodies. And if we don't release that energy, then it builds up and it just stores, and it stores in our muscles, it stores in our joints, and it stores in our energetic layer. So there are ways that we can get this energy out. And I know we have spoken before in our previous episodes of, I think we did one on where your energy is going, and we have spoken about a few tips along the way that people can refer back to that episode. I think it was on, correct me if I'm wrong, the energy, I think it was expelling energy episode that we
I
did.
think it was about the social connections. Am I getting that right? Right?
Yeah, I think we've done it. Yeah, it could be that one too. Whereas again, yeah, the social connections of are you feeling drained, or are you feeling
Right. Yeah.
fulfilled as well? So I think we have shared some practices before, but I mean, there's kind of two ways out of, if we're looking at releasing out that energy, or that the emotions in our body. And the first one is somatic practices. So it's things like breath work, it's movement, yoga, grounding, we've spoken about before, massage. So massage is a really good way to release that tension, and the tension that's in our muscles and that fascia that holds the emotion. You know, if you need a prescription to go get a massage, I'm an advocate. Yep, I will write you, and Pri, I'm sure you're the same. I will write you a referral letter that you can give to your partner, your parent, whoever,
Mhm.
so and so needs a massage. Yep, cool, signed, and all yours. I 100%. If that's something you need, I'm there for you. Because sometimes it is just that permission slip of that's just what you need. And if we talk about that, so that's somatic, that's the body. And we can also talk about the vibrational healing, which are things like, sound bowls. Like I'm sure everyone's heard of, the sound bowls, and the frequency music, essential oils, right? Think simple things like that, Reiki, pranic healing, all those modalities where we're looking at emotions, we're looking at past, future, that they are all ways, especially Reiki and pranic healing, they're great ways of releasing from that energetic layer that we can't always see, but we can feel. And so, whether it's somatic, whether it's vibrational, you can say they might be a little bit woo woo, but give them a go
Yeah.
and see. My question would be how you feel after the session is over, or after listening to the music or doing the breath work. I think the proof is in the pudding. So I would just say to someone, well, how do you feel now? And that would give you your answer to whether that's released something in you. And again, you don't have to see it, it's just something you could feel. um, yeah, and just, I mean, it's one of those things, we love to go on retreats and do those great things. I mean, I'm an advocate. If you want a permission slip for a retreat,
Yes.
I'm there for you, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to go on a retreat. It can just be 2 minutes with your feet on the grass, hand on your heart, and that is a way just to release energetically, emotionally.
Yeah.
Make it simple, make it easy, and make it accessible to
Yeah.
you. So.
Beautifully said, Mel. I love these practical tips. I know we practice these, and one thing I would, request our clients or the audience basically that if you would like to try the massage or, the frequency music or any of the options that Mel has given, stated, do it with an open mind, you know. Try to be open about it. Try a couple of times, and we are definitely sure that you are going to love it. You will see changes, happening slowly. Of course, it'll not be, on your fingertips, but we practice it often, and not, I guess for me, it's not as often as I'd like it to be, but I know there's such a shift of energy, such a shift of, emotions, and there's just a lot of positivity that comes in. We tend to start being more aware of, what's happening in the moment, trying to be present in the now. And yeah, I love all the tips that you shared. Lovely.
And I think the
And
permission slip is such a
yeah,
good one because it's like some people just, they think, oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's not, oh, I don't have the time to. And it's like,
yeah,
just give yourself a permission slip. Maybe we'll task that this week is that, this is your permission slip signed by Pri or me to go and do the thing that is going to be great for you, do the thing that is going to lift you up, do the thing that's going to nourish you, and 100% permission granted, and give that permission to yourself.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess as we're wrapping up this conversation today, to the ones who have endlessly given, it's time to give to yourself. To the ones who carry others, let yourself be carried. Don't feel guilty about it. And to the part of you that's weary, I see you, we honor you. And we invite you to soften into the arms of your own compassion. Give yourself a tight butterfly hug. It is going to, it is definitely going to feel better. Awkward in the beginning, but better. Because healing is not about abandoning your caring heart. It's about letting it include you too. Thank you for being with us today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, a loved one, leave us a review, a comment, and let's continue these amazing conversations together. Until next time, take care and embrace the journey. Bye.
Bye.